Hi everyone, Vinay here. Welcome back to my channel Learn Coding with Vinay and the playlist ASP.NET Core MVC. In this video, we will learn how to handle exceptions in an ASP.NET Core MVC application and we'll log the exception details using Serilog library. So recently Amazon experienced an issue where there was frequently, oops, something went wrong or something like that page was coming up. Let me bring that news, on the screen. So here is that here is that news that Amazon site were facing a problem on either I think the product listing page or add to cart button. But this was the page which was popping up frequently, right? Now they followed a good practice over here that okay, something is not working, but they did not display the technical details of it. They used a common page to display that something is not working, which is a very nice practice and generally followed by many industries, right? So we'll be implementing the similar thing in ASP.NET Core MVC, right? So let's move ahead, right? So I have already created an MVC application. Let me show you with the name, exception handling in ASP.NET Core, right? And run the application also. So we see the default home and privacy pages over there, right? So if I click on privacy, we'll see the privacy page. If I click on home, we'll see the home page, right? So this is nothing fancy, just the default template that loaded, right? And it is working fine. Now let's introduce error on this privacy link and see how does the application behave, right? So let me stop this and let's open our controller, home controller. That's the only controller we have in the application right now. So we have the home controller. What do we have? Index and privacy page. Let's introduce error over here on the privacy method. So what I have done, I have introduced a divide by zero error using this simple maths, right? Let's go ahead and run the application and check its behavior now. So let me go ahead and run the app. So application is up and running now. Let's click on privacy and see what happens. So ideally it should result in error, and from that, right, it resulted in error. And let's see where does it take us to. Let me go ahead and say F5, right? So we can see that it generated an error, and the error details are directly displayed on the page itself, saying it's divided by zero error, so and so controller, line number these, right? So this is what comes with the default template, right? And why this is coming, let me show you. Let me stop this. Let's go to program.cs, and if you see this line, these are the line that is responsible why the error details are displayed on the page itself, right? Because it checks if the environment is not development, then it takes us to the common page, error page, that we will see in few in next few minutes only. But if it is the development environment, then the error details are displayed on the page itself, and that is ideally correct also, because for a developer, if there is any error, it's good to have it upfront, right? So that they can fix it, right, rather than redirect, hiding the error and redirect it to some other page. But however, this setting should be there in the stage and production environment, right? In stage and production, we should not display the technical details, right? We should have some common page, error page, that have some nice message or maybe image, just like we saw for the Amazon, right? That and that error page should be displayed, right? So because of this code, that it is checking if the environment is development, then directly display the error, not do not go to the common error page, right? And let me show you where we can see this common error page also. So in the home controller itself, we have this method that is called error, right? And this method ultimately returns a view that is, let me take you over here, I think it is in sad, this one, error.cshtml, right? So it returns with certain error, certain data, and it takes us to a common page, right, if it is not the development environment. So this is the error page, and the method is defined into the home controller, right? And let's go to program.cs and let's remove this condition. So what we want to achieve is, even if it is a development environment, let's in case of any error, let's redirect user to the common page itself. So let's just comment out this and this. Right, so we are removing the condition, irrespective of development environment. We are just redirecting the user to the common error page in case there is any exception. Now let's run the application and see how does it behave now. Let's click on privacy. Okay, so we have the error. Let's say F5 and let's see where does it take us now. See, now we are being redirected to that common error page, and over here we can change this based on our need. Right, just like Amazon, we can put down our some image and say oops, something went wrong. Or even for enterprise application, which are internal application to an organization, we can plan to put down application owner or support team details also, maybe email address or a quick phone call, right, phone details, so that they can connect to that team in case of any error. Right, so first part is actually kind of done. That okay, if there is anything unexpected going on, something is not working, we are redirecting user to the common error page. So that part is done. But the next part, now you will have to work on the next part, that okay, we are redirecting user to the common error page, but what about the error? What was the error? Right, so we need to log the error details somewhere. It can be either in text file, it can be either in database or some other console sometime. But over here, my preferred choice is always log the exception details into a text file. Why? Because let's say if we are planning to put down the error details into the database, and if there is an error to connect the database itself, right, then if the database connection is not working itself, then we won't be able to log the error. Right, that is one point. And for text file, most of the time text file remains on the application server itself. Right, so it is compared to the failure of logging exception details into the database, the chances of failure of logging the details into the text file are less actually. Right, so if anything goes wrong on application server, short the details will be written into the text file. I- Usually this happens on the same server. Right, in real world your app server and database server can be different. Right, so so writing exception details into database can create problems sometime. Right, because it might result in a deadlock kind of situation, that okay, we have written the logic to write it into the database, but database itself is down, the application is not able to connect to the database, then where will the exception will be logged? Right, so always this is what I have learned from my practice. A better way is to log the exception details into the text file only, and keep those file on the application server itself. However, it comes with one caveat that periodically we will have to clean up those files. Otherwise, the text file will increase and it will eat up your server memory. Right, but there are solutions available for that also. We'll see. Right. So the first part is done. We are redirecting user to the common page. Right. Now the next part is we will be using Serilog to log the exception details. Right. So for that we need to install two packages. First, Serilog .asp.NET Core, and then serilog.sinks.file. Right, so let's stop this. Let's go to Visual Studio and let's go to Tools and NuGet Package Manager and manage NuGet packages for solution. Let's go ahead and search for ASP.NET Core, serilog.asp.NET Core. Let's select this first one and install it. And since we have created the project in ASP.NET Core 9, we'll have to make sure that we are selecting the right version. So I'll take 9 over here, say install. So uninstall button has enabled, so the package is installed. Let's go for the next package, which is serilog.sync.file. So let's go ahead and take this. I think the latest version is 7. Let's take that, install it. So again, uninstall button has enabled, so the package is installed. Make sure to click this save all button because it make changes into the project file, right? And we can also see the packages over here in dependency, expand the packages and we can see the packages are installed, right? Now packages are installed. Now what the next thing we want to do is, so we don't want to write try catch on every method. What we'll be doing, which is a very common practice in ASP.NET Core MVC, that we will be using a middleware, a dedicated class to take care of this. So what we'll be doing, let's go ahead and add a new folder in this project called middleware. Add folder, let's give it a name, middleware. Let's go ahead and add a class in the same class. Give it a name, exception handling middleware.cs, say add, and let me go ahead and put down the required code and I'll explain the code. So what we are doing, we are on each request, what we will be doing, we are handling it, we are checking it in invoke async method, right? If there is an error, we are logging in, we are logging it, and we are redirecting to the common page and we are logging it into the file, right? Now certain file related setting we'll have to add it, so we'll do that next, right? But this is a quite simple code, right? So let's move to the next. The next is to open the program.cs and register the Serilog. So what we will be doing, we will be somewhere over here. So we will be adding over here few things. Let me add it and explain. So what we are doing over here, let me go ahead and add the required using also, so that this error goes off, right? Okay, so what we are doing over here, we are registering our logger into the program.cs. We are saying that okay, anything comes in, you go ahead and to this folder and create a file, text file, and log exception over there, right? And the other settings are, we can either create a file per hour, we can either create a file per day. As of now I'm keeping it per hour, right? And retail fund count limit, basically it is the number of days for which amount, for which the file should be maintained, rest will be deleted automatically, right? For by Serilog itself, right? So and the next line, this has to be there, certain code, as I explained in my previous videos also. For ASP.NET Core MVC, or even web API, certain file, certain code has to be certain place only, right? So this is just the necessary code to configure Serilog for in our application, right? Globally, basically, right? Now this is done. Now since we have used Serilog over here, we'll have to register this exception handler also in our program.cs, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So what we will be doing, we will be just before routing, add this use middleware, and this has to be, yeah, okay, this has to be from our middleware folder, right over here. That's what we created, right? Now I think we are good with the required exception details. So what we did, let me do summarize quickly. We install the required packages, right? First thing, then we did the required configuration in program.cs. First we declare the logger, what kind of attribute it should take, how many files it should create it per day, per hour, what is the interval that the log files will be maintained. Here it is 7 days, right? What should be the naming convention of the file, that it will come with a log and then some date will be there, some date and time will be there, right? And then we have registered it in the we have registered it as a middleware over here, right? Now let's go ahead and run and see the how the application behave now. The application is up now. Let's click on privacy link and let's see what happens. Okay, so it has generated error. Let me just go ahead and say F5. right? So we are being redirected to the common page. That is good. Now let's stop this and let's see if our exception details are logged in the logs folder. So we can see the logs folder now. Remember, we did not created it. It was created automatically by the Serilog itself. And we have the file also. So let me open that and just look at the file name, 202603 28 21. So basically it's 9 o'clock 9 p.m for me, and that's the reason it has appended hour also. If we would have used, let me go over here, and here if we would have used just the day, then that last 21 will not be there, right? So it's up to us. I mean, per day one file is okay, because anyway, if the application is well developed, well tested, then there aren't, much log files will be there, right? So per day one file will be fine. Now let's go ahead over here and see the file now once. So it logs a lot of things. We can control it, right, but I'm not doing it right now. We can control all this logging, but let's see, where do we see the error? See, these inf are the information about our execution, program execution. Somewhere we should see err over here, error, right? That says it was an error, and the error says attempt to divide by 0, and it also gives us the exactly which controller, which method, and even the line number as well, right? If I go ahead and, right, so this will be a very handy information for developer team. They can use it, debug locally, and then see what is going wrong with this particular code, right? So this is how we can log our exception details into a text file, right? So let me go ahead and close this. Now, let's move to the second part. Now we are done with exception handling and logging. Now let's move to the logging. Now, many times we need to log application execution details for critical modules such as payment, or maybe we are calling some third party services, right? So in this example, we will log execution details into a text file using Serilog, right? Now there are certain things we need to follow while logging things. A good logging practice says, log only what is required. Don't log everything, because excessive login can actually affect application performance and make log files difficult to analyze, right? So to implement selective logging, we will use filters in this example, right? But before that, there is one more aspect that we should be taking care while logging, right? So another important aspect says that, do not log everything, just log you know the required things. Now in that case, what to log and what not to log, right? So I have prepared a very short description of it. Let me bring that on screen, right? Now we should not log user details, user IDs, right? User account numbers like bank account numbers and SSN or Aadhaar card, right? Basically those data which are we call PI data, personal identified data, right? That should not we should not be logging that. Then the question comes, what we should log. And what we should log is we should always log the tag details, technical details like start of any process, right? End of any process, how much time was taken, right, to execute that. Maybe controller name, method name, or the entire execution path, right? Those things we should be logging in. Now this is not exception logging, right? This is logging. And what logging means by, it's the details of your program execution. It is not error, it is how your program is being executed. Sometimes we may want to analyze it to improve the performance, because we see sometimes what happens in your application, some pages are taking, some modules are taking time, so we might need to come up with which modules are taking time, how much time they are taking, at what time they are starting and what time they are ending, right? We need those information. Based on that, we can work on improving the code quality of that particular module, right? Now in this case, there isn't any exception. It just the application gives us the required result, but it takes time. Right? So in this scenario, we can only make decision based on the logging, right? And again, logging should not be implemented for all module. It should be there for only required modules only. Like as I said, maybe payment or calling some third party. So make that choice very, very, very wisely, right? Now let's move to the code now. So what we will be doing, we will use the same Serilog, and this time we'll use filters. Now why do we want to use filters? As I said, we don't want to log everything. We can have a code We can have a middleware code, that we can have a class, that class can actually have a common code, that everything will be logged. Once we call the home method, once we call the index method, privacy method, whatever it is, everything will be logged. But we don't want that. We want our certain module, certain page, certain method only to be logged, right? So we will be using filter for that. And so what we'll be doing, let's go ahead and add one more folder called filter, right? Add one more class over here, give it a name, log execution attribute. Let's say add. And in this, this has to be inherited from action attribute, right? So let me go ahead and do that first, right? Okay. And I think the using is there. Yeah, so this has to be inherited from Microsoft.ASP.NETCoreMVC.filters, right? So okay, it's in place. Now in this, there are two key methods that we need to concentrate on. Let me just go ahead and bring that code. So let me explain this. What we are doing, on action executing and on action executed, right? So when the action is called, certain thing we want to log. When the action is, we are done with the action, certain information we are logging. So basically we are retrieving the name of the controller, we are retrieving the method, right? And then we are putting it down into the logging details, right? This is executing and this is executed. So one, this will be logged while the method is executing, and this will be logged when the method is done with the execution, right? So these are the two methods we will be working on. So let me go ahead and save this. Now let's go to our home controller. Let's not log the error, comment out this, and let's on the privacy method, we want that the logging should be enabled. So what do we need to do? We will say log execution filter. We'll apply this filter, and this should come from the our filter over here, our project.filter basically folder, right? So this is done, right? Let me save it. Yeah. So I think we are done with the necessary code. Let's go ahead and run it and see. Okay. So app is up now. We are on the home page. Let me click on privacy. Right. So privacy menu is coming up. And let's close this. Go ahead and observe our log file. And let me open the, because we have enable logging for the privacy method only. Right. So if I go at the end and let me say something started. So request finish, request starting, request executing. Yeah. So it is over here, right? What we are doing, what is logged here? Just a minute. Yeah. So it is over here. Request is starting. Which one? Home privacy and down line. If you go over here, then we should see something request finished or request completed, executed, right over here, and it is displaying the time required, also 120 milliseconds. This one is right. So this information has logged about our code execution. So once we clicked on privacy link, it goes to the controller, then from the controller it executes the whatever code we have in the privacy method. Currently we don't have much code, right? But still it goes over here, returns the view, and overall it takes, it did this many thing and took this much time, right? This is what it is logged. Now we can see, every time we are visiting any page or any other thing, these static files are also being loaded every time, and those details are also logged. Ideally we don't need to require all this, so we can control that with a very simple code tweak. So let me go ahead and program.cs. So we have already configured the logger, but we don't want, what we want, we don't want everything to be logged, right? We just want information and the other information that we, for example, we don't want to have the uh, css loaded, javascript loaded, all those things, right? Because again, they are also resources only. They are also getting loaded on every request, right? So it logs those details also, but we want to override it. We don't want them, right? We don't want system thing. We don't want them. Now let's go ahead and run this and see what is the change we see now. So the app is up and running. Let me click on privacy. Privacy menu is loaded. Let's close it. Let's go ahead and open that log file. What do we have it now? If I go down, you know, let me, yeah, this one only. If I go down, so see this, we see only this information, but ideally we should have the milliseconds and also that, and this should have been not be there. Let me go ahead and delete this all detail, save it, close it, and run the application again. Right. So now we can see this file with only this detail, right? When the executing and when it was got executed, and we have the date and timestamp also, right? So we are not logging everything over here. Every CSS loaded, every JavaScript loaded. That information we don't need. So we have suppressed it, and we are just coming up with the few information only, right? So what we did, it was quite simple. We just added these two line, these three line over here. Right, so we can see now the minimal information is getting logged, and based on this information, we can pull out the data that what is which modules are working at a good speed, or which module are working at a with a latency. Right, we can put down some this data into some database table or something, or whatever it is for analysis. Rather than just looking at the text file, we can put down this simply into a database, and from there, using the date time stamp and this module name, we can figure out what is going wrong over here, right? But the point over here is log the minimum things that is required, and most of the time go ahead with logging the tag details rather than the pi data, right? So I hope you enjoy the video, and I hope I have explained the exception logging and the logging both with a good example. Right. So if you like the video, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Hit like button, subscribe to my channel again. I would say to as I based on time permits, I keep on uploading video tutorials on ASP.NET Core MVC, so you don't miss that. Right. So thanks a lot for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you in some other video. Thanks a lot.